Hello everyone! This story is part of a series titled The Seattle Jijinas. What is it about funerals and viewing dead bodies that is so much a part of Western culture? It may have to do with the way we say goodbye to a loved one. Eckhart Tolle shares some insight that struck a chord with me. In a society where we are taught to identify with our looks, it is a way to understand that we are not our bodies. Welcome to Storytime with Kumars. My name is Kayo Jijina, and this is my story titled A Funeral for Margaret. I hope you enjoy it. September of 1976. No sooner had I stepped off the boat when Mom and Dad decided it was time to enroll me in school. I began my junior year at Ballard High School in Seattle. My friendship with Daniel grew out of an invitation from a classmate named Tran, who saw me taking lunch by myself and asked me if I would like to join a group he hung out with in the school cafeteria. The next day I summoned up the courage and went. The cafeteria had rows of white tables and orange-red plastic chairs on a tile floor. It was packed with students talking, laughing, and the occasional fruit toss. I looked around, and out of the crowd I saw a hand waving in my direction. It was Neem inviting me over. He introduced me to the group: Kim, Cheryl, Sally, and Daniel Danzer. Neem and I shared something in common. We were both first-generation immigrants, and Neem was from Vietnam. Daniel was a lively one in the group and had a way of making everyone feel at ease. It did not take long for us to form a friendship, and like the Three Musketeers, every day after lunch, Daniel, Neem, and I would head down to the basement of the school building and plant ourselves on a large windowsill, sitting three across. Using the radiator as a stepping stool, it provided a great view of everyone who walked by. The window became our hangout place. The school was built in 1915 with brick walls and single-pane windows, which didn't do much to keep the cold out. The heat rising from the cast iron radiator decorated with ornate scroll designs worked great to keep us warm as the heat rose up our pant legs, creating an igloo-like effect. Daniel lived with his father at the Loch Vista Apartments just off of Market Street and 32nd Avenue Northwest. His grandfather had bought him an early Subaru when no one knew what Subarus were, on the condition he would travel to Port Angeles and come see him. It did not take long for Daniel and I to start taking our lunch over at Golden Gardens. Sometimes Cheryl and Kim would join us as friends. A couple of times we played hooky and took the day off from school. Daniel helped me forge Mom's signature on sick notes, which we had to turn in and get it signed by all our teachers. The Loch Vista Apartments were where I first met Margaret Fredrickson. As Daniel prepared to leave for the summer to Boise, Idaho, we carried his collection of indoor plants over to Margaret's place for caretaking. Margaret was a woman in her late 80s with stiff white hair and wore old people clothes, a plain-colored pullover dress and brown house slippers, even when she went outside. When it came to accepting rides from friends, Dad was open-minded about it. No. I either walked or rode my Schwinn bicycle. After Daniel got his car, I would walk around the block, make sure Brother did not see me, lest I get into trouble, and Daniel would pick me up. The agreement was, if he did not show up by 7:30, I was to start walking. Journal entry, April 12, 1978. Daniel did not show up at the designated pickup point. At 7:30, I continued my walk to school. When the morning break bell rang, I saw Daniel in the hallway. He walked up and talked to me. He told me the funeral home had specially fixed Margaret Fredrickson up for him to say goodbye. She had died a couple of days ago, and in her will, she did not want anyone to view her because of the burns she sustained to her face, neck, and chest when the oxygen tank she was hooked up to somehow exploded. Margaret was battling cancer. Dan managed to convince the funeral home director to let him see her one last time. Daniel was visibly shaken up and asked if I would accompany him and drive. Back in the days before GPS, people carried maps, but Daniel didn't have one in his car. So trying to find the funeral home on Queen Anne Hill was trying to find a needle in a haystack. The streets curved and wound all over the place, leading into dead ends or people's driveways, places we had not intended to go. Several times we got lost before finally finding the place. The person at the desk walked us into a private viewing room, which had been especially prepared. The room was small, with standing room only. The heavy wood paneling with dark walnut stain felt like an old English estate. A black casket sat on a pedestal covered with black satin cloth that reached the floor. A small table held a vase with 3 white carnations, which Daniel had made arrangements for. They were Margaret's favorite. Since Margaret was Catholic, an open Bible was placed on the lectern. The floor had a faded, checkered maroon and black colored carpet, no doubt the recipient of many salty tears. Daniel was the first to walk in, and I followed a safe distance behind. This was my first dead body, and from Dan's description, I had no idea what to expect, and I was in no hurry. Before entering, I had visions of seeing a face scarred with burns, unrecognizable to my sight. As I got closer, I saw a woman of small stature, lying perfectly still. I wondered if she was breathing. She looked asleep without a scar on her face. The mortician had done his magic, and everything was perfectly set under a dimly lit light. The place was so quiet, I heard bones creak in my foot as I walked. For the longest time we stood perfectly still, watching the body. Even the air seemed still. My mind began to wander. I remember thinking, what was the difference between being alive and dead, as I stared into the casket? Where had the twinkle from Margaret's eyes gone after she died? Finally, some movement, as Daniel reached down and placed a cross in Margaret's carefully folded hands. Then he fussed with the collar on her shirt, straightened her clothes, her hair, making sure everything was perfect for the final voyage. As I watched, lay witness to what was going on before me, my mind flashed back to a couple of days ago, a situation with Mom. Journal entry, April 7th, 1978. We were in the basement, sifting through old trunks filled with stuff we had brought from Iran, but no longer needed. The plan was to look through it and take most of it to the dump. Brother found a binder with Boeing stamped across the spine, probably from one of Dad's trips for training when he worked for Iran Air. Brother asked Mom if he could have it, and she said yes. I dug down a little deeper into the pile and found an old souvenir kangaroo thermometer, probably from one of our Australia trips. The frame was bent from having weight placed on it, and the metal had developed a small crack. However, the mercury in the glass was intact. I held up the thermometer and looked over at Mom. "Can I have this thermometer? Looks like it got a little bent." Mom looked up. A frown came across her face. "I know you bent it, so I would let you have it." Not quite the response I was looking for, and she grabbed it from me and threw it into the pile headed for the dump, and continued, "I can no longer find my Iran Air pin. I know you stole it." Is that why we were going through the trunks? She marched me to my room and had me pull my special suitcase out. The suitcase was like a trunk, where I kept my special items, like coins, stamps, and match collections. There were no shelves in our rooms. Dad hadn't quite figured that part out. Brother and I each had our own special suitcase. I opened it up and laid it before her. Piece by piece, Mom began pulling everything out and scattering my treasures all over the carpet, but found nothing because there was nothing to be found. After having come up empty-handed, she walked towards the door, turned around and yelled, "I know you stole it! Don't think you're going to get away with this," and left. At the age of 17, here I was with Daniel at a memorial for Margaret. I had gone from the craziness of home to a place of love, sadness, and sorrow. I saw myself in the middle, straddling two very contrasting worlds, and unable to choose the one I really wanted.